So obesity is a very complex problem. It has roots into genetics, hormonal, psychosocial, and their obesity conditions themselves. So I think we just kind of touch upon one element, mostly GLPs one right now. There's just so much to it.
Welcome to the Human in the Healthcare Loop podcast. I am Ramesh Kumar, CEO and co-founder, Zaki Point Health, and I am joined by Dallas Script, Senior VP, TPA segment, Claritiv. Dr. Ahuja, we are super excited to have you on our podcast, Human on the Healthcare Loop. It's all about people like you who are bringing patient experience to better outcomes to people through the journey in the healthcare. And then what was the journey from there to where you're sitting today?
Thank you, Ramesh and Dallas, for inviting me to the programs. And yes, I know Ramesh. He's my brother-in-law for a long time. I would say from my childhood to his childhood, that the relationship goes. It's, as you know, Ramesh, in our culture, is obviously we are raised differently in a way that parents decides, well, oh, no, yeah, you are going to med school, you are going to engineering, you are going to this, and you are going to that. So when I wanted to be a pilot, and there was a young kid in my neighborhood, his name was Boss. He went to Pakistan Air Force and he was getting trained. And next thing you know, within a month, his aircraft ran into accident and he dies. He was such a smart, handsome man. Everybody loved the guy. So his dead body arrives, and obviously it was not only traumatic for him and his family, but it was traumatic for a whole neighborhood and a whole town. So guess what? My dad said, oh, you're not going to fly planes. No, you're going to med school. That's pretty much about it. So here I am. That's my med school story, how it starts.
Wow. I actually did not know that story. Yeah. And finally, you do fly planes now, as I understand.
Yeah, so it's kind of unnerving in that way that I always want to do kickboxing and fly the planes, and here we are. So I still enjoy doing it. And down the line, once I finished all my fellowships and came to Carbondale and said, well, I can go back to flying, and here we are. I've been pilot for the last 10 years now, so I've been flying and have 1,200 hours under my belt and keep flying in my plane with my family everywhere.
That's pretty amazing. That's a heck of a story. Absolutely. Tell us more about the journey.
Well, I grew up in a relatively bigger town and had education in Karachi and did some training there. And I always make a joke with my wife and say, well, I left my parents because of you. Now you have to leave. So we ended up coming to the United States. I was in general surgery training and was doing plastic surgery training actually at that time, and got my visa and came along. So she didn't want to pursue. And then I ended up following her because she got into Masters of Public Health program in George Washington University. And then I said, well, I have to stay in DC. So I started applying and got general surgery residency Georgetown affiliated program in DC. So I finished my general surgery there and did some research, which was absolutely affected my career very positively. I've never done a research, and doing a year of research opened up a lot of Pandora box across other fellowships. So I did my fellowship at University of Pittsburgh, where I did my minimally invasive surgery. I was in my third fellowship actually in Dallas, where I decided I'm 38 and that fellowship is not working out and I'm not happier. So I asked myself, well, what's the best care I provided and where did I find my peace? And it turned out to be the bariatric surgery weight loss patients who I had operated a year before. After the surgery, they came along and everybody gave us a hug. People brought the flowers and gifts and postcards, sending us, informing us, and slash 8 to 10 medications in a matter of days and weeks. So it was very rewarding care that I felt like, wow, that's good. And why would I not do that? So I ended up looking for jobs. I was off cycle and been doing some locum work across the US because I didn't grow up in the US and didn't train at multiple places. So I decided to go do some locum work. So I work in North Dakota, Grand Forks. I work in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And during that rotation time, I found this job that came along and they had lost their surgeon and they were looking for bariatric surgeons to come and build the program. So that brought me to Carbondale and I immediately came and kind of fell in love because I have never lived in a small town. So this was a eye-opener and rural America was very welcoming. People appreciated the work. I could see that. It was very tangible. So I was looking for home. I'm an immigrant with 2 young children and a wife. So we decided, why not? This can be our home. And that's exactly how it rolled up into coming to Carbondale.
That's excellent. I can relate in some ways, clearly not making the impact on people's lives that you do, but I moved to Kansas 21 years ago. Rural America embraced me. I lived in a small town of Great Bend And they certainly embraced me through that process. It certainly became home and always will have a place in my heart for that. I moved to the big city, which is an interesting comment. You mentioned the biggest impact that you made through your career and some of the most rewarding work that you did was when you were bariatric surgery or with weight loss patients. Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, obviously it's a hot topic now. We've got pharmaceuticals that are heavily involved and prescribed, but from a high level perspective, tell us a little bit about those patients, what common themes there and the experience that you've had.
So I started the job here in 2010 and built our first bariatric surgery center of excellence in 2012. It was very busy because I think medical weight loss options were there, but far and fewer, a lot of side effects, complications, intolerances. And the weight loss was there, but not as effective as we have recently observed since the era of GLPs. So it has obviously enhance the armamentarium. When I started the program here, we did about up to 300 to 400 weight loss surgery in a small little town of Bear and served about 7 counties. Every year we did about that many surgeries. But on the contrary, now I would say we would do, last year I did about 98, the year before I did 110. And I suspect 2026 would be the same 100 surgeries about it. All these things that we do for our patients for weight loss are tools. And the spectrum has changed. Pendulum has moved completely to non-surgicals. And for the last 1 year, my observation is that patients obviously have tried those GLPs at least for a year and a half, and sometime 2, before they are asking for bariatric, which is absolutely fair and should be the way to go, because I think those medications are pretty powerful, do robust weight loss, and should be offered to almost everybody that is trying to lose weight. But they are not the most durable solution to most of the patients, and we're still learning about them as well. Fitting the right medication to the right patient, that's where we are finding and we are learning a lot of things about the medications. And obviously, if those medications are not working long-term, which will be the case because the moment you stop those medications, you will become ferociously hungry and regain most of the lost weight. And that's the data we are seeing it.
Tell me a little bit about, you've been treating these patients for a long period of time. And these medications over the last 3, 4, 5 years have become wildly mainstream, whether that be from branding, marketing, to the point of, miracle drugs, wonder drugs. I had a pharmacist tell me everybody should be on them, right? From that perspective, just give your high level professional opinion of the drugs and the classification of the drugs and the impact and potentially the risk.
Yeah. So I think it originally started, 2010, and where liraglutide came around, and which was medication that you injected a daily dose. And then came along semaglutide, which also was the injectable drug, but you were giving yourself once a week. And that had remained the case. It used to be only one GLP-1 receptor agonist, which is the medication working on one target in the body. But now there are medications which have more than one targets, GLP and VIP. And I hear there are more pharmaceuticals in the pipeline, and they call 3G because there's only 1G, 2G, now it's going to be 3G. And everybody's selling them in the name of peptides. So they are all over the place. Even FDA hasn't approved, but it's available. It's called retatrutide. So it's available despite the fact that FDA hasn't approved the medicines because these compounding pharmacies are able to produce and sell it. So I think the bucket is filling up with a lot of agents available, are going to be available. And recently, both major pharmaceutical companies have come up with formulations which are orally taken every day in a pill form. So that is also now addition. So obviously, those pills are not as efficacious as the injectables are. So that's where it dropped. But some patients are not really keen to inject themselves, whether it's once a week or once a day, and they still prefer to take pills. So those patients will be very, very good candidate for those pills. I personally haven't prescribed yet because nobody's asking, because everybody wants to lose weight. I mean, they want to lose weight yesterday, not tomorrow. And they want to have the injectables to really go get me off, and I don't want to wait more.
Are you kind of seeing this mass consumerization of weight loss? It almost is a trend, almost a fashion statement, maybe, I don't know. What is the impact of that? Are you seeing that as over kind of use and they don't have the longevity? What are you imagining the future consequences of this?
So future is only one that's going to tell the consequences, but there are a few things for sure. I'm just going to take right now, United States, obesity, overweight, class 1, class 2, class 3, affecting 67% of the population. We're talking adults. Forget about the juvenile obesity that's there. 67% of the population is suffering with this problem, overweight to class 3 obesity, which is 2 out of 3 amongst us, right? 2 out of 3 amongst us are having this problem. So seeking out those medications is probably a reasonable thing when there's a hope. I see those medications are kind of a hope because people are tired. People see that I'm going to get diabetes. I'm going to have sleep apnea, hypertension. And if I take us back in recent times, particularly quoting the COVID time, the majority of the patients that died were obese and they have chronic obesity-related medication, and they succumbed to the disease because they could not really survive their obesity burden and we call comorbid conditions coming out of obesity. They were just a little reserve left. So when you're hit upon these medical conditions, you just are going to succumb to it. So desire to lose weight by a hopeful medication, I think is out there. But then if you take away that population, which is medically necessary, now whether they are getting approved and insurance are paying for it or not, that's a whole different topic and talk. But I see there are patients, for example, I was talking to Dallas the other day, there are patients who will say, well, I have a sister's wedding and I want to lose 10, 15 pounds. And I want to have this medicine, which is now freely available. I can pay $200 and buy it from compounding. This company is selling it. It's everywhere in the mass media and social media that you can really go put your name and buy the medicine and inject it. And the results are still pretty good. So I think people are obviously using it, whatever that means they have available to.
What do you think the sustainability, the long-term sustainability, the ability to be successful, to achieve the goal, and if it's weight loss or is it foresee it? I know you talked about and off of it and the challenges with that piece of it. Do you think at the end of the day, it's either stay on for a very, very long period of time or it's sustainable to come off and be successful?
I'm going to say something completely outrageous in some ways. So that's out of the way. I think they will be over-the-counter drugs. That's the future you and I are going to see.
Okay.
Because the problem we are seeing is 67%. There's no other means those medications other than those medicines. So it will become a mainstream drug, which has come on the shelf. It's the matter of time. Whether pharmaceutical companies like it or not, there will be newer will be coming. But I think what we know, the medicine code has been broken down by all these compounding pharmacies. They will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to the point, hey, I want to test pregnancy and I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to buy from over the shelf and use it. And that's how it's going to go.
Maybe you could do it all at once. You could lose weight and then test pregnancy, all at one time. It could be one trip.
I just don't see there's any way around it. You and I talk a little bit about it, but I think it's a global problem. And I was looking last night, what's the usage internationally? 1% of the population is using it, which is only the prescribed ones. And I think world as it is not going for prescribed ones because prescribed medications are still very expensive in the United States and countries across the world. So it's not easy to get that drug easily. And so you can buy it from online and people are using it. So I think it's definitely statistics, 1% not telling the truth.
So this is a huge kind of paradigm shift. You're talking about today 1% through prescription-driven approach, and you envision 67% of the world's population should get it over the counter, possibly dual drugs for pregnancy tests. And is that the level of consumerization that you imagine happening? Are you kind of seeing the role of effectively pharma really becoming key in this, and the role of surgeons and hospital care environment are not really being relevant in administering all of this? How is this going to change? I mean, there's a big shift happening then.
So that's a very good question, Ramesh. I think the issue is that and we are treating a symptom again, if you look at it. So obesity is a very complex problem. It has roots into genetics, hormonal, psychosocial, and their obesity conditions themselves. So I think we just kind of touch upon one element, mostly GLPs one right now. There's just so much to it. As a bariatric surgeon and having done thousands of these weight loss surgeries and reviewing the data, 30% of the patient, even after all these $1 million operations that we perform, 30% can still regain weight over the years. So that's what we call recidivism and failure and this and that, whatever you call it. Question is, you do the same operation. How are the 20 to 30% patients regaining all the weight? What happened, right? So it's a complex problem. I think that's where the multidisciplinary approach to the problem would be such that, yes, Ro can sell the medication and pharmaceutical can sell the medication, but somebody has to take a deep dive and understand why are patient gaining weight and how do we touch upon that underlying cause, fix that underlying cause, and if not, then address it at least in a multidisciplinary fashion. So for example, if I see somebody for weight loss surgery and I have to look into it, what's causing it. If somebody has eating disorder, then I have psychologists in town. They will be working with that patient for 1 year. I have dietitians in town that will be working and they are specialized in obesity and obesity counseling. Then lifestyle, then we have support group meetings for those patients. And we have exercise physiologists, and then we have community resources that, well, yes, you have BMI. The largest patient I've done is a BMI 104, and she was a wheelchair bound and could not get out of it. 104, and the normal BMI is 18 to 24.9, right? This is 5 times your normal weight person talking to you, and it's not uncommon that I see all that. So how would you reach it? No, surgery wouldn't fix. Surgery is just a tool. We have to really approach the problem. Whether surgery or medicine, that's where I was coming to. It has to be multidisciplinary approach to it, and we got to bring all the facets of care. If we heavily rely on the drugs, we will have short-term gains, and that we see a lot of it right now. But again, I'm happier. I'm definitely happier. Why? Because at least people are out there seeking help. What was happening before this era? People were not really even talking about it. You could not have a conversation with your patient. And there were stories that if you talk to a patient of obesity, they will sue you because they were humiliated and affected and did not like about it. And today, a lot of primary care do not want to talk about it. And they will send the patient to me because I know how to approach that problem. They will not talk to the patient. I think it's a good change where we have started asking for help and trying these off the shelf or prescription medicine. That's a good start.
You're talking about folks taking action. And if what's changed over the last few years is that's become more accessible to take a different action, to seek a different outcome, at the end of the day, that's a positive step. It may not solve everything for everybody, but doing something different and the possibility of that success is certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think you touched on 2 really important points, which really speak to this whole idea of how humans in the healthcare loop make a big impact, which is this opening the conversations. How do you actually engage patients who are suffering, whether in your case you're describing weight loss or overweight versus any other thing? It's about that opening the conversation in a way that people can actually share and talk and really be open and receptive. And then beyond the tools that you described is all of the other aspects of it: psychology, dietitians, lifestyle, community, exercise, that really in the end solve the problem and the whole systematic thing. And so today our lens is only doctors or hospitals or maybe pharma, but there's a whole range where those humans are really delivering and solving this problem, healthcare problem.
Yesterday, I saw a patient as a very kind of 21-year-old kid, actually, I want to call it, brought in by mother who is in our practice for psychiatric care. She saw that we do medical weight loss. So she brought the son who has gained about 15 pounds. And she brought him in because he was shy and not happy about the 15 pounds. And guess what? When I was in consultation with him, evaluating him whether he understood the diet part, what is protein, what's fat, and what's carb. He did not have any clue about it. Now, putting that patient on a medication would be fairly unjust in my head completely, where I haven't done a basic groundwork to set him up for success. So, and understanding, well, I cannot sleep, understanding that, well, stress is what causing me to eat a lot of the chips and whatever there at my factory that is available. I just go, my boss says something, I get angry, I go eat and this and that. So if we did not approach those issues, unfortunately, what will happen that, we'll be overly prescribing those medications. It will be just suboptimal care and evaluation of a patient who could benefit from the rest of the care that they should receive before they can become a candidate for the medical weight loss.
You're describing really treating the whole patient, right? The whole ecosystem of that patient and root causing of the issue rather than treating a symptom in essence or a result. I think that's super novel. And I actually wish we had a system on the payer side that incented that in a lot of regards.
I think the reimbursement model or the education both have affected the care we provide, and obviously social taboos. A lot of people in my practice, if the patients are coming, they are coming with that known, they have identified in their head, there's a problem that I want to be fixed. So I don't shy away from addressing that concern, number one. Without that, I won't be doing the job. Number two is the reimbursement model for the practices has become such that a lot of are in that momentum don't spend enough time because there are so many patients sitting. I have to hit that number and whatnot. But I think it's still setting that foundational work with the patient can bring the best yield you could ever have. Because a young, healthy guy at 21-year-old didn't have any medical condition. So my 25 minutes was just talk therapy. There was nothing else to it.
Talk to me a little bit. There's a business side to everything, right? You run a great practice. You got your surgery center. I come from the payer world on that. And sometimes we become a little myopic at the cost of things. And that's where our focus is. But there's a lot of operational components to it. Talk to us a little bit about interacting with payers. I'm sure you work with a lot of those and the experience your team have with regards to that. And maybe even what you would like to see changed in a perfect world.
Yeah, I think payer side and I think everybody has their side, but all in all, I think, yes, healthcare cost is rising, no question about it. But I think we have to look into where are we spending most of the money. A lot of things when it comes to healthcare costs, general public perception is the physician fee is where the most of the money goes, which is contrary to the fact. The majority of the dollars are going either administering the medication, and most importantly, it is the hospitalization that is the most inefficient cost that goes into it. And hospitals are generally not efficiently run. So that is where the problem is. Do we run into that situation? I can tell you, think about so many payers in small little market. Each payer has their unique set of requirements. So you play along and fire a patient, you fight and you contact this, contact that. A lot of regulations from payers that, well, we need to satisfy this and that. So I have 2 full-time employees in my office to get prior authorization, understand each payer's requirement, comply to that to get paid. And there's no single dollar allocated. Well, you are doing this administrative regulation that we have created for you guys, and you should be getting incentivized and paid for that. But none of that happens. But if we don't do that groundwork, patients don't get the benefit that their insurance should be providing. I think patients talk to me and say, well, this is not about me, by me, but your insurance, what it's doing. And it's not uncommon, as I said, policies keep changing. So it's very frustrating side in some way. But I think what we want to see, we definitely want to see it has to be a plan that at least a centralized, nationalized level of care. When I particularly talk about weight loss surgeries, it is the ridiculous amount of work that we have to go through. Because I see the insurance companies are always saying the calories in and calories out. And that's how they always blame, well, patients are eating too much. That's the reason they don't qualify for weight loss surgery. And that is now how it should be. We know that it's a disease that has roots in genes sometimes, in behavioral, psychosocial disorders. I have not heard from any of my surgeon colleagues that they are having that extent of difficulty changing somebody's joint or put a stent in their heart. Never, ever. Nobody asked about that. And if you think about it, 67% population is obese. How many of them are having joint problem, back problem, knee problem, diabetic, hypertensive, sleep apnea? They are disabled half the time when I see them. And it's stemming all from obesity. But if we address that in a little bit of better way, I think we can definitely reduce the healthcare costs. Absolutely.
I agree with you. And kind of a unique experience. I was at a TPA and we had a parent company that was on surgical centers, surgical hospitals. And one of their partners was actually a group of bariatric surgeons. And I gained a lot of knowledge just by talking with those folks and listening, actually a lot of listening and understanding kind of their perspective. Because at that time, I've seen a shift with regards to bariatric procedures throughout my career. So originally, when I entered the career, the kind of common consensus was that they're kind of overutilized and they're very negatively impacting health plans because they're expensive. Right. So there was kind of a high volume of them. And then that thought process kind of started to change to the effect that, well, actually the bariatric surgery saves money over the course of long term in the sense that it's reducing future care. So if that member stays on your health plan for a period of time, not one, their quality of life improves and their quality of work in essence improves, but then also the cost of the health plan actually goes down because they've had the surgery. So I've seen that shift kind of through my career. And the interesting piece now has really been of non-surgical, right? Is the GLP-1s, and then even the future of the orals, the GLP-1s in oral form. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how that plays out. But I've kind of watched that whole ecosystem happen through my career. And the most interesting or most valuable information that I've got through that was ultimately from talking to bariatric surgeons who were living it every day. They spoke very similarly to yourself, which is understanding the whole patient. What I realized wasn't this overprescribed procedure necessarily, even though I'm sure, there's bad actors in every field. But for the most part, it was necessary for those people's quality of life. And at the end of the day, that was probably accurate. But been the one care area throughout my career that I've seen the biggest perception shift from a health plan perspective. And I'm working with employers. So the employers make their own rules for the most cases with regards to in the TPA world. Now they mask and they look a lot like big payers, but for the most part, they have some control in that side. So just curious your thoughts on that, because it's definitely evolved.
It has evolved. And I was in residency in 2002, which is a long time ago. Our chairman was John Kirkpatrick, and he was an open bariatric surgeon, did everything open. A lot of our patients were on the grant money, and some insurance is paid. A lot of insurance did not pay. So I think I absolutely echo what you're saying. Over the course of years, the access has improved. No question about it. But I think it's still requirements have increased as well. So I think, like you mentioned in the beginning, it's a cost for the procedure. But reality is up to 90% of diabetic patients are non-diabetic in a matter of days. If they were taking 4 blood pressure medication, they'd take 1 blood pressure medication, 80 to 90% in a week. Sleep apnea goes away in 3 months in 60 to 70% patients. High cholesterol, quality of life, not to mention functionality and longevity and cancer risks. Obesity causes so many things. So I think there's no question in my mind that it is absolutely rewarding. Overprescribe, I just can't believe there's overprescription of bariatric surgery. Why? Because there are so stringent guidelines right now and have been all along since 1992 when the BMI NIH created those criteria. We have still monitoring that, despite the fact that I think 2 years ago, American Society of Metabolic Bariatric Surgery changed the criteria, because I think those criteria are very old and limiting access to, and we know more about it. And I don't think so all the payers have accepted those. And it's a transition that takes some time, a decade or so, it'll happen. But I don't think so overprescribed from my point of view. It's underprescribed. Yeah. If you look at it, total 1% of the population is seeking weight loss surgery in the United States 3 years ago. That is even before the peak era of GLP. 1% of the qualifying patient who could potentially seek weight loss surgery.
No, it's certainly not. Also, my understanding when I had the opportunity to spend some time with those physicians was the efficacy of the procedures, the sleeves, gastric bypass procedures. The efficacy became significantly better over a period of time. And it was almost a myth that the quality of the care was as risky as it was. But that was kind of a theme when I got into business was, hey, like this is a high risk procedure. And I think there's relativity to high risk. But I think ultimately what I realized from those folks was those numbers improved dramatically too. And that was almost more of a myth.
Yeah. So I think the reason it improved, I was mentioning John Kirkpatrick open surgery. So when I operated with him, it took us an hour and a half to make the incision, which is from hair to hair. Go do the operation took 2 hours, and closing itself was 1.5 hours. So sometimes it took 5-6 hours to do the operation as a one law. And patient did not go home the next day because you have a whopping big operation, big incision, it's painful operation. Guess what? Fast forward, I finished the residency in 98, and 99, I did the minimal invasive surgery. I have done thousands of weight loss surgeries and have only 4 open operations in the last 17 years. I mean, says enough that the risk of, and the patient, those same patients, same operations, shouldn't say same patient, similar category of patients and same operations. We do within an hour, hour and a half operation. They are walking same day, going home next day, and they are back to work next week. So I think, and then they are going home and work without 7 medicines that they were taking before.
That is amazing. I do have a question for you, just shifting gears a little bit. What was younger Ramesh like? Can you give us a little insight? Our viewers want to know about that. They want to know about Ramesh as a young man.
Ramesh, first time met, Reno and I, his sister, my wife's name is Reno, and we got engaged, and he came for the first time for our, I think, engagement. And so he was a young Ramesh. I remember you have a backpack and you had this tennis record hanging out, which I've never seen, projecting out from the back. As smiley as he is, courteous as he is, soft as he is, humble. So that's how he's always been, actually. I have seen nothing, but he's like a wine that ages and gets better.
Yeah, it's funny. That's how he shows up to business meetings now, with the tennis racket in the backpack too. So he sends a message when he shows up. When I first met Ramesh, we were actually in San Francisco, and we were at an industry conference, and he showed up in a maroon suit, which was bold, but it looked good. He pulled it off. I don't think I could pull it off, but he did it. And we were dealing with reference-based pricing at that time. We had made a commitment at the TPA level that we were going to embrace reference-based pricing, which is a different payment methodology. And in order to do that on our side is very labor intensive on the from a member journey perspective. We had to focus on that. We had to kind of revamp some things. And one of that, we needed mobile technology. We needed a way to interact with members differently than phone calls at the end of the day. And so another leader at the TPA, Terry, and I, we actually sat down with Mesh over lunch. And I think we scheduled a meeting for like 30 minutes. It went 2 hours. And we had a very clear vision of what we wanted. What we didn't understand is the vehicle that it was going to take to get there. And what was amazing is Ramesh never took a note in that 2 hours, but listened intently. We had great dialogue back and forth. And then when we got back together a week later, when we all got home, he had documented everything in that meeting without taking a note, and had insightful questions to kind of move the conversation forward. And I'd never interacted with anybody quite like that in my career, that had the ability, that was that focused and present with regards to what we were doing, and didn't attempt to put us in a box, right? Didn't try to say, this is what you need. It was more listening and collaborative, and then really came back and I feel like we solutioned together. And as far as partners go, there's not much better. I will say that I had a wonderful experience with that when we first met. That was a long time ago, though. I had more hair. I was slightly better looking. That's how that goes.
You also like wine, Dallas. You've grown on since then.
That's true.
And that's true. Also, we've kind of stayed on as friends, and we have collaborated since then multiple times. And doing this podcast together has been such a joy. And I thank you to both of you for sharing your first impressions of me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's overall, we three of us different experiences as we are coming into this healthcare world. And it really kind of goes to where healthcare is going, where healthcare needs to go, people bringing this holistic experience beyond just the hospital environment. How do we change the system? How do we bring more holistic kind of care, lifestyle, exercise, stress management? How do we ensure that people get paid for that? And that's kind of where I certainly get excited. And I love this collaboration and this discussion where I get to learn so much about what it takes to take care of a overweight patient, or helping them transform their life. And that impacts in all of the areas of healthcare as well. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best. One of the more fun things about this podcast and having the opportunity to do this is that we get so many different perspectives, and really the alignment is there in a lot of ways, but a lot of the stakeholders aren't connected, right? And maybe that might be the really path forward, is connecting some of the stakeholders. Maybe we have to, in the future, we'll do a human in the healthcare loop like conference, like the folks that believe the earth is flat. They still get together every year. You have a conference. I'm not sure what new information comes out in that, but I feel like we have a lot of information that we could bring to the table. But that's what I've realized from the folks that we've talked to, is the alignment and the passion. There's clearly passion to move things forward and to provide a system that's better for all parties at the end of the day. That alignment's there. They're not necessarily physically together yet. And I think there's an opportunity to get closer there. And I'm sure technology will play a role in that, but I think there's an opportunity there that exists that's becoming very clear to me.
So to kind of land the plane, love to hear, Dr. Ahuja, where do you see this needs to go when it comes to what Dallas described? This ecosystem needs to come together, better ways to pay for the full kind of service or value that's delivered to the patient. You talked a little bit earlier about, physicians don't really get paid much. And it's the hospital system where the inefficiency lies, and also a lot of the big facility fees are really. How do you see this evolving? What is, from your clinician's lens, what needs to happen?
So I think, and I'm going to be talking surgical perspective. So I think hospitals, when patients are going to the hospital, they definitely get insurances, payers to have to pay a lot of money to get that done. So first and foremost right now, to reduce the cost, I think all the unnecessary things, everything that happens in the hospital that shouldn't be done in the hospital needs to come out of the hospital, go to the surgery center. So that is your bang for the buck. Very easily, you're not compromising care. And most importantly, you are collaborating with the physicians or non-physicians out there. It will absolutely bring a lot of costs as a payer level. And most importantly, I'm confident. I do endoscopies in my office, and I can tell you that I've seen two things. My wife got colonoscopy in the hospital. Blue Cross Blue Shield paid $9,600. And same colonoscopy I do in my office, I get paid $900.
Wow.
And I think that is good deal for Blue Cross Blue Shield, both same plan. Setting is different. That's all is different. And you got it done. And satisfaction is through the roof because it saves patient a lot of aggravation, gets it done timely rather than waiting sometime years. So those type of partnerships payers have to do and make those alliances. So those are smaller procedure. Obviously, there are complicated patient that needs to go to the hospital. Absolutely, they need to go there. But that is the starting point there. It needs to happen. Surgery center needs to evolve, and that's where it needs to go. Addressing the broader scheme of things, health and journal, I think the regulatory bodies, which is going to the government level, it's the carrot. I think we are making processed food unregulated product, which I think has affected as a nation and maybe the whole world right now. It needs to be better than that. We need to really fix our food, and it needs to be regulated. And I know we believe in autonomy in this country, but sometimes my patient, 21 years, he's 21 years, he does Google for everything, but he never looked where the protein is. What's protein? He doesn't know about it. And I think we need to really do a better job educating the masses. I think we penalize those processed food and incentivize to produce better food in this country. And food has to be food. And I think food doesn't have to be this processed, packaged, and bagged items that are sold on the shelf for monetary gains. We could do all that. We want to make profit. Everybody has to make a living, but we can produce better products that is not affecting the health of Americans and the worldwide. And that's what I would do.
I love that appropriate side of service. And this focus on the food. I think that's very fair.
What a great way to finish this takeaway. And really appreciate Dr. Ahuja, your time. Fascinating learning around how our healthcare system is working. What is there to come with GLPs?
Thank you both. I really enjoyed the opportunity talking to you. And I absolutely think we are all on the same alignment, actually. All of us are doing, and we all just have a different trench, I think. We are bees. All of us are doing bee work. We're all in our trench and trying to farm and trying to produce whatever we can and whatever it takes to do it.
Agreed. I love it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.